Working with terrain as well, I think it's going to be important and key to track. So both players are going to have to really watch and manage their board state to put themselves in a really advantageous position, because these are two of the best trainers in their region. They're known to be putting on a good show every single time they play, and I think this set should be really, really exciting.
Yeah, I think you're right, Adam. It's going to be a little bit of everything in this game, so let's jump right into it here. Both our trainers are ready, and it looks like it is Magnezone and Kingdra coming out for Estephan, whereas Paul is leading with Duraludon and Incineroar. So, going to be able to fire off the Intimidate here for the Incineroar, but it has to watch out from any Water-type moves coming out from that Kingdra. Of course, Magnezone on the field, not going to want to take any Fire-type moves. I wouldn't be surprised to maybe even see Estephan switch out, bring in Politoed, and get that Rain up as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and one of the cool things now about the way that speed changes work is if you make that change early on, you get to take advantage of it absolutely immediately. So really, really cool that people can kind of do that and switch things up quickly, because you don't usually see Kingdra on the field without the partner Politoed or without the Politoed being in previously and able to deal that damage. So really kind of interesting to see how this is going to play out and see where things are going from both trainers. I do like Kingdra and Magnezone. I think both of them are pretty strong together. But Kingdra leaving the field for the Politoed. So they're not going to be together. They're going to be one after another. And there, of course, is the Rain being set up by the Politoed. No shot there at all.
Yeah, I called the wrong switch there, Adam. Instead of the Magnezone kind of tempting the Incineroar from maybe a Fire-type move or something, instead Politoed's going to join the field, set up the Rain, and negate some of the damage that Fire-type moves can deal out. Paul, however, going to Dynamax up the Duraludon here. Again, a Pokemon that when it's Dynamax can be so key, particularly with its varied move pool of reducing statistics on the opposing side of the field. Looks like it's going here for the Max Wormwind, going to target down into that Politoed. Of course, Kingdra previously on the field, that would have done so much more damage to that Pokemon, and will be lowering the attack stats here on Estephan's side. Politoed, though, able to take that and will also activate its berry, so we'll be able to regain a little bit of HP, so it's not going to be too damaged from that move there. Incineroar going for the Snarl. Now that is a move that is going to have more effect against Estephan's Pokemon by lowering their special attack.
Yep, two special attackers getting that taken down by Snarl. Really kind of interesting to see. That said, though, there's a reason Politoed pairs up with the Magnezone. It just means you can Thunder right off the bat. You don't have to worry about missing, you know. And this team really does look like it relies on Rain. If you're relying on Thunders, you're relying on Kingdra to be moving first. It could get pretty troublesome if you just leave that completely uncontested. That said, though, you know, Duraludon Dynamaxed. Got a good amount of damage down. Got, you know, some attack drops. Not really what you needed to see there, but getting that damage down, forcing that Kingdra out as well, really key. And if the Duraludon can capitalize on the next two turns that it's Dynamax, it could put Paul in a really strong, really advantageous position.
Exactly. And the one thing as well with that Incineroar, although it does have to worry about any potential Water-type moves coming out from that Politoed, it can just sit there and still click that Snarl button, really negating the offensive pressure that the Magnezone can deal out. Rillaboom joining the field, though. Again, a Pokemon that's going to be protected in the rain, and will be able to apply some good pressure to the opposing side of the field. Duraludon, once again, though, going for that Max Wormwind, targeting into the Rillaboom and doing so much damage. That slot keeps changing Pokemon. It's where all the Pokemon are switching in at the moment, and they keep having to take these really powerful max moves, and it is just reducing the HP that Estephan has got on his side of the field. Snarl coming out once again. Rillaboom now being in such a critical position, it's not going to stay on the field too much longer.
This is actually something I kind of like to see, is you're lowering attacks and you're lowering special attacks. So whatever Estephan decides to switch in doesn't get to keep its full attack stat in whichever one it's relying on to deal that damage. So, you know, the options really do get limited here. If you bring in, you know, if you want to save the Rillaboom for later, okay, that's fine, but then you're going to get your attack and special attack dropped again. And Paul just applying constant pressure with these two. This will, of course, be the last turn of Duraludon's Dynamax, but it's done so much work, and it's not taken a single bit of damage for its troubles either. You know, it's not really being threatened by either Pokemon on Estephan's side of the field. You know, Magnezone doesn't cause it too many problems, and I really don't think the Rillaboom, even with the grassy terrain, it's going to be scary to it at all. So it looks like Paul just going to keep up the pressure with these two. Magnezone, though, deciding, yeah, I can't get anything done in this turn. And we'll see if this switch can help Estephan kind of find a way back in.
Yeah, quite wisely resetting the stat drops there on the Magnezone. Rillaboom is going to go down to the Max Steel Spike coming out there from the Duraludon. And again, like you said, there's a lot of lowering the attacks of either special attack or physical attacks that of the opposing Pokemon. But while it's in that last max move, Duraludon decides to boost up its defense as well. And that's going to really help it out against any of the physical attackers on Estephan's side of the field. Pokemon like the Politoed and the Kingdra, though, obviously leaning towards more kind of special attackers. That's something that the Duraludon is going to have to deal with. And I wonder if it maybe is something like an Assault Vest variant, so that it's going to be able to carry the damage a lot better from these two Pokemon and isn't so worried about that, which is why it wants to boost up that defense stat.
Yeah, and honestly, if you look at the two Pokemon on the field, they're both candidates for carrying the Assault Vest. We've already seen that it's not going to be over on the Incineroar, so you can probably conclude it might be on the Duraludon as well. And, you know, knowing about that, we can obviously see it from our side. So we know that it's there and it's going to be able to take these attacks pretty well. And the longer the Incineroar gets to sit on the field and just snarl, means that the harder it's going to be for Estephan to get back in this game. Don't forget, he switched Politoed in on turn 1, so he could run out of the rain at some point as well if he doesn't play it smart and switch it in and out, particularly because it's not like Paul's ever going to change it. He's probably pretty fine playing in the rain for the rest of the game, especially if he can just land snarls for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I think if you're Estephan here, you really, really need to get rid of that Incineroar. The Snarls are just putting in so much work against you, and particularly as he's now gone for that Dynamax, that's not a Pokemon that you want to switch out because then you're wasting your Dynamax turn. So the sooner you can remove the Snarl user from the field, the better for Estephan. It is indeed going to be that Magnezone going into the Dynamax form here. So whether Estephan will be able to get all 3 max moves off, that is still to be told. Unfortunately, my Spanish is not so good. I'm not too sure what the Duraludon went for into the Magnezone there. But it looks like, again, it was a Snarl from the Incineroar. So, again, looks like the special attack is being lowered.
Yeah, I mean, this Incineroar is just going to keep on lowering attacks, right? And that's kind of key to, I think, winning this game, is just being able to say, you know what, you're not allowed to play the rest of the game. Just a little bit of assistance there, and I'm not much of a teacher. But that was going to be a body press from the Duraludon, so being able to apply some decent damage there, even though it's not like boosting its defense like many other body press users were. So kind of cool to see something a little bit new coming out there, but super effective damage is going to be key. And here's the thing, you know, there's some really problematic Pokemon in the back. You know, Paul can kind of bring something like this Lapras in towards the end of the game, and that'll be doing a whole lot of work, particularly if he can get rid of the Magnezone before that happens.
Yeah, exactly. Cinderace jumping onto the field here. And again, this is a Pokemon that can apply a lot of pressure with a fighting type move. We often see it carrying that high jump kick. But this is where the mind games can slip in a little bit for Estephan, because high jump kick, if it doesn't connect or it goes into a protect, will deal 50% damage to the Cinderace. And that's something that Paul cannot afford to take in this situation. You don't want to be accidentally doing that amount of damage to your Pokemon. Cinderace, however, is going to use this Libero ability and I believe go into that fighting type and go straight into the Magnezone, picking up the KO, so removing the Dynamax Pokemon from the field for Paul. Just once again putting himself in such a strong offensive pressure. He's removing all of these threats, or he's weakening the ones remaining on the field.
Yeah, the high jump kick there, taking out the Magnezone, putting Paul in such a good position. The critical hit landing onto the Politoed as well means this game is pretty much all but done at this juncture, and it's, you know, there's not much you can fight back with anymore. So Paul playing this set really well. I mean, even though Estephan kind of got everything he wanted, right? Like, he got the rain up, you know, he got his Kingdra to be safe until the end of the game. It's not really been enough, and this Duraludon is still sitting at full health. It hasn't taken a single point of damage yet, and when it's holding something like the Assault Vest, you need more than 1 or 2 turns to deal with it. So Cinderace is going to keep going with the high jump kicks, just see how many of those it can hit. So much damage from that move.
Yeah, it does so much to the Kingdra, but Kingdra will be able to fire off a move here, going for that Muddy Water, going to connect on both the opposing Pokemon. Not very effective against Duraludon, and will not be getting any of those accuracy drops. So Duraludon able to go for that Draco Meteor, going straight into the Kingdra, picking up that last slither of health and taking game 1 for Paul. So incredible game there, but I don't really know what Estephan had against that Duraludon. It really was the champion of that game 1.
Yeah, that's going to be the problem that he's got to solve between game 1 and game number 2. He's got to find a way to get through that Duraludon. He's got to find an answer to it as soon as possible because it sat on the field. It only took damage from that muddy water.
Find an answer for that Duraludon because it's just going to be able to sit there and deal out so much damage.
Well, let's go into game 2. Let's see if he's figured out the answer. You'd like to think that after seeing what it did in game number 1, he's managed to come up with something to try and not let it play the game. There is an immediate change. Kingdra and Volcarona. So I like that Estephan's looking at his whole team, trying to find a way around it. That said, Paul has just gone right back to Duraludon and Incineroar, and he could be putting himself in a very similar position to game number 1. You know, I like that there's a change. I think that being able to say, I'm going to bring Volcarona and I'm going to try and at least deal some huge damage somewhere is absolutely key there. So we'll have to see if this adaptation pays off for Estephan. There's going to be a lot riding on the Volcarona, though.
Yeah, a lot of pressure on that Volcarona. And of course, Estephan leading towards sort of a rain variant team. Bringing the Kingdra does suggest that Politoed is probably hiding in the back. He needs to make sure that he uses those fire-type moves with the Volcarona before he maybe sets up the rain, because then you're just going to be negating your own strategy and kind of causing yourself a few problems along the way. There is, however, going to be a Dynamax straight away, and as this time it's going to be from Estephan. I wouldn't be surprised to see if it is that Volcarona, so that it can start dealing out some really powerful max flares, maybe set up Sun Slayer even more boosted. But no, it's actually going to be that Kingdra, Adam.
Yeah, I think this Kingdra needs to try and do as much as it can, because it was just so underwhelming in that last game. That said, I mean, Max Guard there just to try and keep it safe from the Duraludon, which didn't even Dynamax either. You know, really key there. That is going to be a struggle bug out of Volcarona, and that's one way to start dealing with the Duraludon, right? Is being able to say, you know what, I'm going to lower your stats because you were lowering mine in the last game, and I didn't much appreciate it.
Yeah, kind of playing Paul at his own game here. Go for that struggle bug, reducing the special attack. Kingdra does protect itself there from the Snarl. Volcarona, however, will take the hit and will have its special attack reduced. But as well, the Duraludon is sitting there undynamaxed. Paul does still have access to this, and it could be, since we have seen what he's got in the back, it could be a different Pokemon choice to Dynamax in this particular game.
Yeah, I think he's waiting for kind of the perfect opportunity. You know, we saw him firing out the Thunderbolts there, and I think he was probably looking for a Politoed switch in to try and deal some huge damage to it on the way in. But for his troubles, you know, he's now going to be 2 struggle bugs down on this Duraludon, and obviously that's going to hurt the Lapras on the way in as well. That said, though, there's Water Absorb from Lapras, getting its health back. A fantastic switch, meaning, you know, Duraludon does get to land the Draco Meteor. Super effective, but now his special attack is so low. You know, he may be forced to switch it out, but that's now 2 turns of the Dynamax Kingdra where it's just not been able to do anything. I mean, a Max Guard and firing an attack into Water Absorb is not what you want to see when you're heading into turn 3 and you're desperate to deal big damage.
Yeah, this is really well played by Paul here, stopping Estephan's Dynamax from being as effective as possible. I wouldn't be surprised to see whether Duraludon maybe is just going to be kind of sacked here, or maybe we'll switch out later to get its stats reset. Struggle Bug coming out once again from the Volcarona, though, just going to lower the special attack on both these Pokemon. Again, Lapras known as a special attacker, so that could come in handy for Estephan later on. As the Max Wormwind comes out, though, goes into the Duraludon, doesn't manage to pick up the KO thanks to that Assault Vest really being able to help it out here. And these stat drops aren't really going to be too critical on both these special attackers. Another attack going straight into the Kingdra, still not able to pick up the KO, and it looks like this Duraludon really is just having its special attack reduced constantly. Lapras, however, going to help out its buddy and remove the Kingdra from the field.
Yeah, I mean, this Duraludon now has absolutely minimal special attack, right? It can't do much damage at all, but it's curious to see that Paul's left it on the field for that long. And the fact it's there and the fact it did so much in game number 1, it's kind of just drawing attention, I think, over to it and you know, saying, hey, look at me, you need to attack me. And that's exactly what it's done, right? That means that Lapras is still pretty healthy. And even with, you know, a tiny bit of health left, absolutely no special attack. We see him diving into the body press. That won't care about the special attack, and I think that's really key. But he's managed to deal with the Dynamax from Estephan's side, and that means he can hold on to his Dynamax till a later point in the game and go from there.
I think you're right. Even though Duraludon hasn't gone for the Dynamax as having its special attack depleted, it's still put in a really decent amount of work here. As well as the Volcarona not being able to take it down, it can just sit there and go for that body press like you mentioned, which will not worry about that special attack. And with Magnezone on the field, this could be really critical for Paul. Gonna go target down into that Magnezone. You know, it can't Dynamax. Estephan's already used that. Deals a solid third of damage there, as Lapras just protects from some of the moves coming out on Estephan's side of the field. So Lapras sitting at really reasonably respected health.
Yeah, Lapras is still in a pretty kind of good condition, right? It's not taking too much damage at all, and that may be a candidate for the Dynamax. I think Paul really does have 3 candidates for it on this team: Duraludon, Lapras, and we see the Cinderace available as well. So whichever one could seal up the game for him is really going to be key there. And this Volcarona, not as offensive as some of them, right? You know, a lot of the time you'd see a Volcarona just quiver dance early on, and it's not done that at all. And that can be something that Paul's aware of and knows that its job is to just struggle bug over and over again. So Paul, you know, is kind of tired of that, forced to switch around a little bit. And I think a turn where maybe Duraludon gets knocked out, you know, finally gets taken down, could be really essential. Now that the Incineroar's in, he'll have access to Fake Out next turn and could go from there.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Duraludon might survive one more of these struggle bugs. Yes, it does. So it gives itself another opportunity to go for a body press. Paul maybe thinking that the Lapras was going to be the target of an electric type move coming out from that Magnezone, switches in the Incineroar. It also gives him the fake up pressure going into that next turn. It is indeed going to be a Thunder coming out and going to go straight into that Incineroar. Does manage to pick up the KO there. Really, really strong power coming out from that Magnezone. So wise that Lapras got in out of the way. But Cinderace, again, that's a Pokemon that can apply a lot of pressure to the Magnezone. So once that's removed from the field, Lapras is sitting in a really, really safe position for sort of an endgame situation for Paul.
Yeah, I mean, Lapras is something that we've seen it so many times. Just can sweep games if it's left unchecked. And I think once he deals with, you know, making sure the field is in peak condition for Lapras, it could just win the game outright. I mean, it might not even need to Dynamax, depending on what's left. It might be able to let something like the Cinderace Dynamax and kind of carry the game on its own. This Magnezone's taken so much damage, just staying on the field and getting hit over and over again. And this Volcarona's been a little underwhelming, right? It's just saying, you know what, I don't know if I can do it anymore. So I think this next turn, Paul could really start to apply the pressure to Estephan there and cause a problem that means Estephan has no way back into the game.
Yeah, exactly. And going for those struggle bugs with the Volcarona, you know, that's not something that the Cinderace, for example, is really going to be too concerned about. And Volcarona, yes, it's kind of sitting there relatively unchecked, but lowering the special attack on Paul's side really hasn't stopped him in his tracks at all. He's still been able to pick up some KOs and deal a huge amount of damage. And I think that's mostly due to the versatility on that Duraludon with something like the body press. As well, having the diverse Pokemon that he's got here can apply a lot of pressure in a multitude of different ways. Magnezone here is going to return back to his Pokeball as we see the Politoed finally here. So if we were expecting any fire-type moves to come out from that Volcarona, now would really not be the optimal time for it as the rain has set up onto the field. But this will boost up any Scalds potentially coming up from that Politoed later on. But hey, Paul's still got his Dynamax, and that's exactly what he's going for right now.
Yep, he's going with the Dynamax Cinderace and should be able to start taking knockouts. I mean, we saw him hovering the Max Airstream there in the menu, and that heading towards Volcarona should be a pretty easy time for him to start picking up knockouts. Of course, there are some interesting item choices potentially on the Volcarona to help it out. But of course, you know, Paul's going to be aware of those. This is an open team sheet format, so nothing too shocking. Volcarona's already taken damage, and even a Cobra Berry, not enough to save it from that. And now it's a speed boost. I still think it's funny that Duraludon is just sat on the field. And now Duraludon has got a speed boost. So, you know, it's a little more threatening. It does have no special attack, but that speed boost could really help it out. It's now still going to keep body pressing, and that doesn't care about its special attack. So at least it gets to do something in these turns.
Yeah, and dealing like a sort of a chunk of damage to all these different Pokemon will all add up in the end. And I think you're right, Duraludon's kind of sitting there and having a good time, but he's also putting in some work. You know, being kind of the main threat for Estephan going into this game. And, you know, if you're Estephan, you had to prepare for it. You had to come up with ways to stop it, whether it's in Dynamax or not. And the fact that Paul hasn't Dynamaxed it and has just been able to sit there untouched this late into this game too just shows the strength of it. And Cinderace now being able to capitalize on these max turns, particularly as it has got that max airstream used, so it's got that speed boost. It's going to be able to apply loads of damage with something like a max knuckle into that Magnet Zone, boost up its attack even further, and then target down into that Politoed.
I think it's so funny to watch Paul go into the menu and just check that he's got all of his kind of stat drops available on special attack, and he really doesn't have a choice apart from you know, body press and see how much damage he can do. But Duraludon, you know, fine. Oh, there it is. He's finally going to reset the special attack drops. Even with 4 health, he's going to save it for later.
Oh, I think Duraludon's done too. He deserves a rest, reset, maybe come back later into this game, but not before Pyro Ball, or Max Flare, I should say, comes out from that Cinderace going straight into the Magnet Zone. I actually love this play. I said it could be off Max Knuckle, but actually Max Flare will A, pick up the KO, and B, be able to reset the weather. And with Politoed unable to switch out and reset the rain, that does put Politoed at a slight disadvantage. Going to target down into that Cinderace, does very, very little. Oh, I think it went into the Lapras actually. Does very, very minimal damage there.
It was actually an Icy Wind that landed on both.
Ooh,
and did a tiny amount to both. That's probably why you didn't see the health bars ticking down that much, because they weren't, to be honest with you. That said, you know, control of the weather really important there, and the fact that Lapras has freeze dry just means it should be easy. In anything goes wrong, Cinderace is just going to max airstream first, and Paul changing up the strategy, playing things a little bit differently. Yeah, Politoed can't take that at all. And Paul Ruiz takes a comfortable 2-0 over Estephan Valdebenito. I think what's really cool here, though, is the strategy changed so much between games 1 and 2, and I think Paul showing complete mastery of the team that he brought with him.
Oh, 100%. He was